Today on Locked On Red Wings, Detroit earns the win in a better, but still not great game.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Scotty, happy Monday, buddy.
Happy Monday.
I'm just noticing you got your background all set up. You're wearing a Lions jersey. We're recording this before the Lions game on Sunday, so.
Yeah, it's like half set up. Also, like, because I have to share a screen with you, you can't see like the whole thing. Like on the Tiger show, you can see like the other two banners. And then I have another row of like stuff to go above all that too.
Wait, hold on. Let's see.
Halfway done.
Let's expand you here.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
But I have a whole other row of pictures to go up here. So
yeah, well, with mine, you can't really see it still. I have more jerseys and stuff obviously on this side of the wall that you can't see anymore with the current setup. Looks nice though. Looks really coming together. You gotta get a little bit more wings on there. Maybe hang that Giovanni Smith jersey behind you. That's what you need to do.
No, because I'm wearing it. I have a Wings banner of like all their titles that I think is gonna go above there, and then I have a picture too of a Wings game. So yeah, we're chilling.
There you go. It's starting to come together, buddy. It looks nice.
Starting.
Anyways, Red Wings were the winners this weekend. A Matt and engima LCA. They played the Columbus Blue Jackets, and we were joking, and we were like, we're going to keep churning out the same three keys until they actually do it. And to be fair, I think they did two of the three keys in this game. I think that's really the best place to start. The two keys they did meet is top line production and starting on time. And starting on time was the biggest thing that we needed from this team all season long. There were a lot of games, even when they were playing hot, that they just did not start on time. They started out flat. They weren't getting any passes going. They weren't getting any pressure going. During their hot stretch, we saw more of them pressuring during their win streak than they were getting pressured, but there were still games from time to time where they'd have to make that big comeback, that big push at the end. We've been joking that they're a third period team, but I think in this game, they did start on time. It's obvious. They got out to an early 2-0 lead, really pressuring the ever-living hell out of the Columbus Blue Jackets, getting into the board corners, winning those races, the big things that we have been talking about, even Alone has mentioned about simplifying the game. Doing those little things results in so much. And I will say that in this game, of the things they did better, starting on time and getting out to an early 2-0 lead was a big reason why I think that in the end, they ultimately ended up winning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously, like, we'll talk about the end of the game too, because they were losing at one point. But I agree with you. I think that the early kind of punch in the mouth definitely helped. The thing that's just so frustrating is, like, if you get out to a 2-0 lead against the Columbus Blue Jackets, you should not be playing in a close hockey game, and you certainly shouldn't be losing a period later. Like, and it was short-lived, right? And they came back and scored two quick goals and retook the lead and whatnot. But again, like, you're playing the Columbus Blue Jackets and you're up 2-0 in the first, and you won 5-4 and were losing at toward the end of the second. Like, it feels like it's one or the other, right? Like, you either get the classic, slow start, strong finish, or you get really hot start and then like claw your way back in. I also think that, we're obviously going to talk about the goalie situation here. I think that probably played a pretty large factor.
Yeah,
Factor or two.
The first 5 minutes of the game, the Red Wings got out to a 9-shot attempt edge over the Columbus Blue Jackets that resulted in 2 goals for. That everyone keeps talking about that nifty move Raymond did, and it was a slick move. And there's our other aspect, right? We say top line production, although Raymond was technically out there with Comfort Cop at the time. I'm counting that because Raymond plays top line normally. It was just like one of those half changes that occur. Raymond, that was a really nice play from behind the net, but it doesn't happen without Comfort getting into the corner and from his knees feeding Lucas Raymond. Like, JT Comfort continues to be one of the few players that even when the team is playing bad, he's still giving it his all and making things happen. So I really appreciate JT Compher that digging that puck in the corner and from his knees, feeding Lucas Raymond, who goes behind the net and comes back short side at the wraparound. Beautiful. But as every game passes, JT Compher impresses me more and more.
Yeah, he's been great, man. He has been not necessarily like finding the back of the net production, but he's doing a lot of little stuff and a lot of big stuff. He, when we talk about production outside of the top line, he has been one of the people that is definitely, I don't know, I don't want to say like been a force. I don't want to be like too dramatic, but he's been noticeable out there for sure. He's been pretty good, especially like during this weaker stretch. Like we got off to the hot start and like a lot of people were doing well, and then we started losing games and not a lot of people were doing well, but he was the one that even during these losses we were like, oh, but JT Compher looked pretty good.
He and Joe Veleno, who I thought also had, and I want to wait on the Joe Veleno praise because I want to praise that entire third line. I thought that third line in this game was standout altogether. Christian Fischer got the promotion up to 3 as well. But obviously, the Red Wings got out to that quick 2-0 lead. Robbie Fabbri also scored on an assist from Christian Fischer. I can't avoid it, man. That third line, I guess, actually, you know what? I said we'll wait, but I guess this is the best place to talk about it because the third line produced in that regard. Robbie Fabbri playing on the third line with Christian Fischer and Joe Veleno. I thought they were the best line consistently the entire game. And it's backed up by advanced stats. But this is a line that, we know that Robbie Fabbri's got hustle. That's why it's so vital that he's healthy. Because he's going to go out there and he's going to play hard on both sides of the ice. Now, he's not the best defensively, but that doesn't mean he doesn't try. He had 2 blocked shots in this game, one of which was massive.
One was terrifying, too.
It was. Well, I tweeted about it. I was like, we're always wondering why Robbie Fabbri's hurt. And then he goes out there and he makes diving blocks like that. It's incredible. But that third line, man, as a whole, Joe Veleno just using that speed to play both sides of the ice. He's not afraid of getting in the corners. Robbie Fabbri obviously has a finishing touch that line desperately needs, but he's also not afraid to block shots. And Christian Fischer's just the dog. He's got that Tyler Bertuzzi-esque to him. Like, he's not like, he's definitely more physical than Tyler Bertuzzi was in terms of like hits. But like, he's not afraid to get in the gritty areas and dig that puck out and set up his teammates. That's how that Robbie Fabbri goal happened. So he went behind the net, won the puck battle, and fed Fabbri out in front as he was falling down. So that third line, that's just a microcosm of how good they were in this game. But that third line across the whole game was just the best. And in fact, it's backed up by the fact that those 3 players led the team in expected in Corsi for percentage, 68, 62, and 60% at 5-on-5 relative. 20 shot attempts for that line when they were on the ice, Scotty. 9, 12, and 13 against because they get out there at different times. Robbie Fabbri was only out there for 9 shot attempts against. And Corsi counts blocked shots.
It's not bad.
No.
It's not bad at all.
Well, and when you go to Fenwick, which doesn't count blocked shots, if you block a shot, it doesn't count as a stat against you. Only 6, 7, and 8 shot attempts against at 5-on-5 for that line. They were a shutdown machine out there.
Yeah, man. That's the interesting part of the line blending early on in the season is, we had like the quote unquote shutdown line, but it wasn't producing. And now like we're finally starting to mix and match some other lines in there. And that was the line in this game that was shut down and produced offensively. Like you said, it was pretty clearly the most consistent productive line and was good defensively too. Christian Fischer is such a dog, man.
Oh yeah. And like people will sit here and they'll say like, oh, well, of course they had less shot attempts against because they didn't get a ton of minutes, but they got decent minutes. At 5-on-5, Joe Veleno was 6th in minutes. So they were getting plenty of ice time. Christian Fischer, he's around the middle of the pack. Robbie Fabbri is down near the bottom. But the dispersal in this game, the third line was getting plenty of minutes, and they prevented a lot. And a part of that reason is because they were actually really good in the offensive zone. Again, despite the fact that they didn't get as many minutes, they were the top forward line at shot attempts for at 5-on-5.
Yeah.
The only player that was on the ice for more shot attempts for, because again, this isn't there. Like Joe Veleno himself didn't get 20 shot attempts for. It's just how many shot attempts they're on the ice for. The only player that had more shot attempts for when he was on the ice, or the only player the team had more shot attempts for when they were on the ice, was Ben Chiarot at 21. And we got to talk about the Ben Chiarot and Jeff Petry enigma, because I don't know what is happening. I honestly don't.
It's pretty fascinating.
But we'll get to that. And I know I kind of went on a rant there. Obviously, let you respond to the third line stuff. I'm very sorry. I got on a roll there talking about it because I loved it so much.
Said it all.
But we got to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue this conversation on Locked On Red Wings. First, I got to talk to you guys today about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home the win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. First of all, that is a banger of a read. Every time I read it, I'm like, this thing just flows so well. Like, that is just how a read should be written. Awesome. Love eBay Motors. Scotty, I know I kind of went on a little tirade there, just praising the third line. Do you have anything you would like to add? As the second host of Locked On Red Wings, would you like to speak?
Honestly, I don't have too much to add. I think you covered most of it. I just will continue to sing the praises of Christian Fischer. I think that he has been a valuable addition for a guy that when we first brought him on, we were talking about maybe being like the 13th forward, and now is like earning third line minutes and penalty kill minutes. He's been a very, very valuable asset for this team.
I mean, you can say the same thing with Joe Veleno, right? Like both of those guys going into the season, we were pretty dismissive of.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, with Joe Veleno, I think it was a little warranted because he didn't have a good year last year. He was very lackluster, so to speak. Didn't really take that step forward we had wanted to see. But with Christian Fischer signing, I was like, why did we get this guy? Like PK specialist? But if that's the only thing he's good at, like, is that going to earn him an everyday spot on this roster? Every game he plays on, like be it fourth line or third line, like you cannot deny his hustle. Or as Scotty puts it, he's a dog. And he really is. Like, I know we say that as a joke, but he really is a dog. Like,
no joking about dogs, Brian.
And we, you're serious? We love high hustle guys. Like, they're just always fun to watch. Guys who don't necessarily have like the top end scoring talent, because you know that they're trying every single time they're out there. And when they get the results that Fischer's getting now, a couple of assists and a goal in the Montreal game that just happened to go off of his fist. It's nice to see. And so I was really happy to see both him and Veleno get that promotion. They've been very pleasant surprises early on in the season, especially through the struggles. There hasn't been much to look forward to in these games where the team struggled, but those two players, and in my opinion, Joe Veleno in particular, have been the players to watch. And no disrespect to Robbie Fabbri. He was excellent in this game as well. I've talked about him a little bit. But.
Big time.
Now, I think this is a kind of a good transition because I did mention it. The only player on this team that was on the ice for more shot attempts for in this game at 5-on-5 than the third line was Ben Chiarot. And if you go to hockey stat cards, I'm going to throw this up here because this is one of those situations where, man, eye test and what the statistics and advanced stats are giving you just completely contradict one another. So obviously you have Christian Fischer, Robbie Fabbri, and Joe Veleno at the top of the chart here in impact. Just absolutely great impact. Fischer and Fabbri having over 3 game score, Veleno being just under 3 game score. And guys, game score again compiles all expected data, not all, but takes expected data and real data like plus minus assists and goals and weighs it to give you a score. And in game score, a lot of the time, actual empirical data is what is weighed heavier. So it's not a surprise to see Jeff Petry had the best positive impact overall with the negative downside on defense, and we'll talk about that. because he got 2 assists in this game. So that's why he's so high up there. But that's exactly it. Jeff Petry and Ben Chiarot are the top 2 defenders in this game, Scotty. And I can't figure it out because while I'm watching this game, and maybe I have just an internal bias, but while I watch this game, those 2 players consistently pop out and stand out to me as making negative contributions on the ice. Yet they show up at the top of these charts. Now, granted, it comes with, like, again, it's that game score is weighted heavily by actual empirical data, right? So like one good play or being out there for a goal for when you just step on the ice is enough to boost you up the standings. But they weren't bad when it comes to Corsi or expected goals either. They were below 50%, which again, you want to be above 50%, but they weren't bad in that game either. They're an enigma is basically what I'm trying to say. They are the epitome, Scotty, of giveth and taketh, I think is the best way to talk about that pair.
Sure. I don't mind giveth and taketh. Yeah, man, I don't really know either. And I think for me, I mean, continuously, I have said that I would much rather those 2 guys got more of a look on the third pair, because that's like the other thing that's like fascinating to me is they get like prominent playing time and they get second pair minutes. And then sometimes they're out there for special teams. And then like Ben Chiarot was on the penalty kill this weekend at one point. Like, okay, that's, a decision for sure. And like, then they were out there with what, like a minute or 2 left. Like they were out there to close. Not the close of the game was Sider, but like they were out there like in crunch time at the end of the hockey game. Like I don't know. It's there are certainly a lot of moments, and again, maybe it is like some sort of a bias situation towards them, but like there are a lot of moments that you look at and you can like very easily point to and be like, wow, like that was not great. And like the fascinating thing is when we look at Chiarot specifically, because he was on the team last year, it's like it's not like Chiarot was like at the top of these last year, and it's like, oh, like it's just weird, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it's just like a weird thing with Ben Chiarot. He doesn't look good, but his data's good. Like, no, he was like at the bottom of like this pretty consistently every single night when we would look at these, and his like WAR was terrible, right? Like it's just it's very fascinating that in these last 2 games it's been like that where he's graded out pretty well, but I don't know if the eyes match up with that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, so and Petry and talking specifically about Petry because he's the one I noticed a lot in this game. There was when the team got out to a quick start and then we're up 2-0, you're like, okay, you've given yourself some wiggle room. And then, of course, Hull and Goss Despair just let Texier have the entire middle of the ice and skate down and score on the first shot of the game for the Columbus Blue Jackets, which we'll talk about that and Husso in a second. But then immediately after that, I think it was the Corrali goal. So not immediately after that. It was in the second period to give the Blue Jackets the lead 3-2. Like Jeff Petry was caught flat-footed. Like he's backing up. He's got Sean Corrali coming towards him towards the middle of the ice. And Jeff Petry's just letting him close in that gap before they even get to the blue line. And that pass is made to Corrali, who just chips it past Petry and shoots and scores. And again, we'll talk about Husso in a second as well. But like, that's a moment where that pair, it's like, how do you can't be that easy to go around. Like you have to give up some resistance. You can't be blasted past at the blue line as a defender. Like that's an instance where he's just too old. And I'm sorry, too old is not right. He's just too slow. And it's probably attributed to or exacerbated by his age at this point. But then he immediately drives to the corner and feeds Alex DeBrincat to tie it up at. And that was a fantastic play by Jeff Petry. If I'm going to be critical, I'm going to give him credit. That was a great moment to step up into the play, into the corner, and find DeBrincat in the high slot for DeBrincat to get a goal and get back on track. Going again back to that. Defensive lapses were all over the place, and every defensive pair did it. But when I'm watching Jeff Petry and Ben Chiarot, I'm watching them get caught out of position, turn the puck over. And then in the offensive zone, they're getting assists. They're ending up on the score sheet. They're an absolute enigma, and I don't think it's consistent. I don't think this can be a consistent way to win, rather. But putting them together and putting Petry and in this game, this pair had more ice time than Walman and Seider. And Walman and Seider, to be fair, have been struggling lately, especially defensively. But I just don't think that this can last. I think you're going to end up, a lot of what was criticized about Justin Hull with Toronto was overextending him, giving him too many minutes. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen with these two. That you're going to overextend them, give them too many minutes. Why is Jeff Petry playing nearly 5 minutes on the power play? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, they're going out there, and Petry had 5 blocked shots. Ben Chiarot had 3. But at the same time, you wouldn't have to block shots if you didn't just let them have the offensive zone, right? Like, there's just so much. That's why I say they're the epitome of a give and take. Like, they'll go out there and they'll make really good plays, but it's also at the expense of a couple of really boneheaded plays as well. It's just a really heart-racing way to watch a hockey game is that pair.
Giveth and taketh, for sure.
Like, I'm more than happy. I mean, I love the fact that Petry has five block shots, like laying your body on the live. I respect the hell out of that. But just like, why did you have to block 5 shots to begin with? Is it because you just gave up the offensive zone? Like, right. Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things. I just can't figure them out. I don't think that they're particularly great, but they produced results in this game overall.
I think that's fair enough, Brian.
All right. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, you want to talk about Husso next? Okay, we'll talk about Husso next. Stay tuned. Segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Alex DeBrincat could score 50 goals. Jeff Petry could not lock up 60 assists at this rate. Who knows? And the Red Wings could hoist the Stanley Cup because, crazy enough, Scotty, despite this slump, Red Wings are still second in the Atlantic Division. It's a really tight race. They're not like running away with it, but they're still second in the Atlantic Division. And you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app for the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you need to do is pick whether studs like, well, I won't say McDavid. He's off to a sluggish start as the Oilers canned their head coach. But let's say Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks off to a rip-roaring start. Whether or not he'll record more or less than sleeper projections on things like goals, assists, and plus minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100-time bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Red Wings fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKDOWNNHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's LOCKDOWNNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, let's talk about Ville Husso, because this is another game where I feel he wasn't really all that great. I felt he gave up too many, again, soft goals. And I don't think it's entirely on him, but that glove hand especially is not great.
Yeah, man. I think at this point, I am starting to get really upset about the Alex Lyon situation. Mm-hmm. And I tweeted it after the game, like, Husso's given up 9 in his last 2 games. And Reimer took the most ridiculous penalty to lose a hockey game I've ever seen in my life by a goalie. And that's your last 3 games. That's and like Lyon is obviously not going to come in here and like be, the Vezina, right? Like I'm not saying that like, oh, you got to give him an opportunity because he's like guaranteed better than the other 2. But the other 2, Reimer's been good this year. He just took a horrible penalty. But like Husso you're supposed to be like your catalyst and your workhorse, and has not been good. Like I don't think we can just kind of like call it what it is. He hasn't been very good the last like couple of weeks specifically.
Yeah, I don't think we can keep sweeping under the rug the soft goals when they're really starting to cost the team.
Yeah, man. And so it's just with how this past week's games went in net, right? Husso couldn't stop a nosebleed. Your backup took one of the worst goalie penalties I've seen in recent memory, and it directly lost you the hockey game. I'm not sure what else has to happen for you to roster 3 goalies and not give the third one an opportunity. And I guess we can focus more on Husso. Like, if you want to, obviously that's like, we're talking about this game, and Lyon obviously didn't play in this game. So like, he's not really a storyline of this win specifically, but Husso, again, that's 9 goals in his last 2 games. And one of those 2 is against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And like, the defense, I agree, is not doing him any favors. We'll continue to beat that drum, but it's continuous. And like, I think very quickly here, if this doesn't stop, the fan base is going to have to start having the conversation about like, who is even in this net long term, like legitimately. And I'm not trying to like overreact or be too dramatic off of like one start, but again, this is an underwhelming start to the year for him, a really poor last couple of weeks, and a really poor last 2 games specifically, after a season last year in which, after American Thanksgiving, he struggled, right? He was incredible for the first 2-3 months, and then that was it. And I think we have a big enough sample size in his entire Red Wings career now where people are going to start poking holes in the long-term status of Ville Husso. And I think we can have a much broader conversation about that on an off day or something. But for this game specifically, he again struggled and was allowing some soft goals.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we have a big enough sample size at this point to really know. And for a while, like, we swept under the rug the soft goals under the guise of poor defensive breakdowns, and that was present in this game as well. Like, should Texier have had a breakaway? No. I mean, there's huge defensive lapses. Like, this team, while I thought offensively they applied a lot of pressure, in fact, the Red Wings had a 64% of the expected goals in this game. Like, they had the better scoring chances. They attempted and just straight up outshot the Columbus Blue Jackets in this game. It's the huge defensive lapses that lead to giant odd man rushes coming back the other way, which they never fail to capitalize on because Husso is struggling to just make even the most simple saves. It's not like Texier came down the ice and put his jockstrap in the rafters like, was it Poitras of the Boston Bruins did last week. I mean, he came in and from the hash marks just took a wrist shot that went underneath his glove hand. The Corrali situation was the same thing. It was just a shot. Line's goal, that one I'll give him a little bit of leniency on because he was partially screened and Line can absolutely rip it. But it was just a shot from the top of the circle. Like, and it's the most frustrating part because then he'll go out there and he'll make like this dynamic athletic save with the shaft of his stick. Like, he's very capable of making athletic saves and big time saves, but it's like the standard stuff that he struggles to stop. And we can no longer just sweep it under the rug and be like, well, there should have not been a breakaway to begin with. Yeah, that's true. But if a player is just shooting the puck, you should be able to track a puck good enough to be able to make the save with your glove. And it's just getting frustrating to watch. And we're the goalie defenders, right? So while you were talking, I wanted to, because you asked, like, what is the solution here with the Detroit Red Wings? And it's like, I said it, and, you pushed back on me a little bit, and rightfully so. You know how I get a little bit too emotional and go one way a little bit too far. But I said long-term, like, if this team's going to become a successful hockey team, like, you really need Sebastian Cossa to pan out. I mean, you're looking at it, and people are saying, we're screaming to their rooftops before Reimer's dumb penalty. Reimer, you need, like, that. They should play Reimer as their goalie. And I'm like, dude's 35 years old. And he's never really, he's had like a starter role, but never more than like 50 games, really. He's never been able to really take over a net as a starter. And you think that he at 35 is going to be able to take the grind of playing 60 minutes 4 days a week? Like, that's just, or 3 days a week, however many games. Like, that's not possible. Like, the reason he's playing at the time was playing so good was because you only saw him once a week. Like, that's perfect for his role, his position. And then, like, I get your frustration with Alex Lyon. He was really good in the 15 games he played with the Florida Panthers in the regular season, but historically, he's not really it either. He's a third goalie option and always has been throughout his career. That's his role. They tried to play him in the playoffs, and he wasn't very good. You look at the pocket starts he gets before last year. He was just okay at best. Like right now, the Red Wings have goaltending depth, but none of that goaltending depth is really suited to playing, being the starter. Like, should the Red Wings have, again, the Red Wings suffer the most because they give up too many odd man rushes coming back the other way. And their goaltending isn't good enough to allow for those kinds of odd man rushes coming back the other way. So until they can figure out, and it's the same issue we talked about when they started the season, until they can figure out their starting goalie situation, it's going to continue to be the biggest weakness of this team and biggest reason why this team will not be a contender. Not saying they won't be, because they're still very much in the mix of, like I said during the ad break, still second in the Atlantic Division. But you don't want to be and you don't have enough talent to be the Edmonton Oilers. Not that they've been good this season, but historically, or the Toronto Maple Leafs. You don't have enough talent to be those teams who can outscore your problems. So you got to figure out how to play a complete team game, or you're going to end up too good for a high draft pick and not good enough to make the playoffs.
Yes. You don't want to be the Minnesota Wild.
Yes.
I mean, like, and obviously the Wild now are not like that, but like you know what I'm talking about. You know, for a decade they were.
Yeah. Now the difference is, instead of not making the playoffs, they make it to the first round and get eliminated.
Right. Over the hump.
So much better.
Over the hump.
At least they make the playoffs, I guess. That being said, I know this kind of came off as still a very negative episode. There was still a better performance by the Detroit Red Wings, Scotty. Like, offensively, they produced a lot more high quality and dangerous scoring chances. They still wrong 2 off the post. Daniel Sprong hit a post, who, by the way, did score a huge goal for the Red Wings to give them the lead on that turnover by Columbus in their defensive zone, our offensive zone. Produced a lot more chances, had a lot more pressure. It was great to see them start to adjust and get back to where they were, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. And that is the crux of the episode.
Yeah.
Better game.
No, it's better. And like it's hard to win in the NHL, man. We'll gladly take a win. But a lot of the things that we continue to point out of like areas that they need to improve on, you know, we do the 3 goals of the game and whatnot, you know, there's still there's still plenty to improve on. But yes, obviously we'll take a win, as ugly as it was.
Yeah, I mean, again, they met. You got a goal from Raymond, who was technically out there at the second line at that moment, and they got a goal from DeBrincat, which was great to see DeBrincat get back on the horse named Friday. He desperately needed that after not having a goal in like 8 games. The Red Wings needed to get out to that hot start. It's a good thing they scored 2 early ones, because it allowed them to have wiggle room to stay in this game. But again, those defensive lapses, the goaltending, it's what allowed the Columbus Blue Jackets to hang around. So
absolutely.
Well, we don't have another game until Thursday, right? They play Ottawa in Sweden. Back-to-back days, Ottawa, Toronto, divisional games in Sweden. Couple big games for the Red Wings, but we're going to have to figure out what to talk about for the upcoming days.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. You have any final thoughts, bro?
We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode on Monday. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.